Hello everyone, and this is my review for TNA Impact Wrestling on September 15th, 2016. And well, there's a couple storylines throughout this entire show that, basically went through the entire show. I basically said it right there. And that was one, the aspect of the Hardys and Decay going out through the entire thing. I'll get into that in a few moments. And the bit with Lashley and Moose as well. And a few things that went along with that. So I'm going to get into those last. And so let's go through everything else. One, you had a promo backstage before the first match of the night. First of all, there were not many matches at all. Matter of fact, let me double check all this. I think there were four. There were four, and one of them was kind of taped without the show being there. So the first one, this whole aspect, because I missed last week, this whole aspect with their new title, the Grand Championship, which is basically what I would say like a UFC style, or maybe not even just UFC style, but a wrestling style format, where you have, like you would have in boxing, like you would have 3-minute rounds, you have 3 rounds for it and everything in that sense. So in a sense, like I said, semi-UFC, semi-boxing, real wrestling aspects to it, and you're putting it into a professional aspect where, you're just throwing clotheslines, you're doing clotheslines, punches. You still have those rules, but now you have 3-minute rounds to them, and you have judges to go along with it. And so they started a tournament up last week where Eli Drake and Drew Galloway advanced. This week, before the first match of that, you had a promo from Aaron Rex talking about, his beef with Drew Galloway, and also being inside of the Grand Championship tournament, which culminates at Bound for Glory. First of all, a really good promo. I felt like it was a good promo from Aaron Rex. Going into the match itself, it's an interesting format, something to get used to. Mostly because I don't watch a lot of boxing or UFC anymore. It's kind of, like, I know the formats and everything like that, about judges, everything in that sense. But it's one of those things of getting used to it in a professional wrestling standard in some way, shape, or form. Overall, interesting way of doing it. And honestly, it doesn't make it feel like the matches are rather short, because it makes you feel like it's like, oh, matches are generally around like this short most of the time, and you get a quick break in between rounds to go along with it. This match ends with Aaron Rex obviously going over Trevor Lee with in like the second round of the match by pinfall. So rather quick match. Like I said, rather quick in the terms of what you would typically expect. But I think in the end it was like a 4.5 to 5 minute match in the end to go along with it. Eddie Edwards went up against Mohammadi Shira as well in another first round match. I thought it was a well put together match. The way they told the story throughout the entire time was like an aspect of Eddie Edwards trying to get a submission hold, like right at the end of the round, and like it forces around the end and everything. And so you had like Eddie Edwards going after a particular body part, and then like in the second round, Mohammadi Shira was going after the ribs the entire time. So it looked like Eddie Edwards was injured going into the third and final round, and eventually, after more of Shira working over the ribs of Eddie Edwards, he was still able to get a submission, a half Boston Crab in to get the submission in the third round. I thought it was a well put together match, to be honest with you. Like, this made me feel like that maybe this format would be just an interesting style format to see, and it could come off rather well. Like I said, with the Eddie Edwards and Mohammadi Shira match, I thought it came off rather well for what it was in the end. So it came off pretty decent to go along with that. Other matches for the night. One, you had a empty arena, no turnbuckle match. Now, I was thinking in my head, like, what are they going for this? Because technically the turnbuckles are, like, even without the padding there, they're still turnbuckles. So what they basically did was just take off the padding on all the turnbuckles, and there was nobody in the arena. And this was with Braxton Sutter and Rockstar Spud. The way when I watched this, there was one way that I described this entire match, and that was this match was brutal in multiple ways. Like, the way that both of them came off in the fight and everything came off as a brutal fight between the two of them. But honestly, for this feud in general, you don't feel like something like this was necessary. But this is where they went with it. Second of all, just empty arena matches in general. I've never been a big fan of them. There's been very few times where I feel like they use everything creatively in the terms of an empty arena match. This is another one of those areas. And the whole aspect that there's like, oh, there's no turnbuckle pads on the ring is like, okay, this feels like let's take a couple of potential gimmick things. So let's take the empty arena and let's take the turnbuckle pads off of all the turnbuckles to go along with it. Yeah, let's just put those together. Go. Have fun. I didn't like this match. I really didn't. Like, the performance that they gave came off as a brutal fight, and they did that well. And the aspect with Braxton Sutter going over after using the exposed turnbuckles multiple times was the proper way of going. I mean, you had it in the match. That's the way you should go with it. And like I said, you even have Rockstar Spud like spitting up blood and everything afterwards to go along with it, because that's kind of where the whole thing has been with the two of them. Is the two of them, like, ever since Rockstar Spud got like busted open in his mouth from Braxton Sutter, like, they kind of traded this back and forth and everything. So they told an okay story to go along with it. It's just the match type wasn't necessary. It really wasn't. They could have gone with some other kind of style of hardcore match. And again, we go with this. Again, another week of Impact Wrestling. And guess what? Gimmick match. Gimmick match. Yeah. You know my feeling on that. I'm not a big fan of gimmick matches, but, well, gimmick matches all the time. I'm actually a big fan of the gimmick matches being there. It's just like, it doesn't have to be all the time. And it seems like it does happen on a weekly basis with this show. So the next match, which I believe was also the final match of the night, was you had promos leading into it as well. You had Maria basically cutting promos, saying like, oh, she's gonna so she doesn't overshadow Gail Kim at Bound for Glory. She's gonna do the Hall of Fame induction tonight. Oh, and by the way, the week before, because I had missed last week, unfortunately. She had been stripped of her power, of the leadership of the Knockouts, because she has the Knockout style. So technically she has no power, but she's still trying to pull like strings and everything like that to go along with. So she has Allie and her out there, and like Maria's going completely nuts throughout the entire time. Gail Kim, eventually Gail Kim's out there. Maria does some kind of mockery of the Hall of Fame induction, and it eventually leads to Dixie Carter coming out, like, after even like Gail mentioning, it's like, you have completely lost your mind, haven't you? Moments. So Dixie comes out, fully explains everything again, and then decides to makes the full announcement that there was going to be a gauntlet match that night to determine the number one contender of Bound for Glory, and she puts Gail Kim into the match. And, even fully explaining away the aspect of what they had done beforehand, because Gail Kim technically never lost a match in that series that she was forced to go through with Maria. It was just one of those things like, oh, it ended by DQ, and she won the match. So, and then Maria's like, nope, you're never going to get a title shot ever again. So they kind of explained that away with that aspect. As for the match itself, Gail wins the gauntlet match, and what I would honestly say was a pretty messy match. It was kind of all over the place. You had a new knockout come in. I'm not sure how her name is actually said right off the bat, but you had a new knockout come in to replace Allie right off the bat, because Maria's still putting down Allie and everything in that sense. And you could tell from the crowd and from everybody else that, she's going to eventually turn on Maria or something, and they were going to play off of that. But like I said, overall, I felt like this match came off rather messy in the end. Like I said, the people that were in there, the new knockout, Jade was there, Sienna was there, Marty Bell, was inside of the match, Raquel, and of course Gail. So those 7. I think, and Madison Rae. Madison Rae makes the 7th to go along with that. But like, it just kind of fell all over the place. I'm a big fan of Battle Royal stuff and everything, but this one came off rather messy. It did what it needed to do, though, which is get the story going that, it's going to be Maria versus Gail at the pay-per-view for the Knockouts title. So it did what it needed to do there. So this is going to bring me to the 2 main points of the show, because they covered a lot of the show. Let's talk about the fallout from Delete or Decay. So Matt is basically trying to bring everybody back. Like, everyone's injured and hurt going in after Delete and Decay from the week before, and so he wants to he wants to heal Jeff Hardy's wounds, or Brother Nero's wounds, and everything like that. So apparently, the 7 deities are going to make the water rejuvenate and heal the wounds of Jeff Hardy and everything. So he puts him into the water, and he brings him back up, and he has the Immortal title and is in a suit. So it's like the Jeff Hardy from the Immortal time. It's like, this is not the Jeff. This is not the Brother Nero I need, and ducks him back down, and the proper one comes up for what he was like. And I found that a bit funny to go along with it. And then throughout the show, he went on the look for Vanguard 1 and finds him and realizes that Vanguard 1's down. And, apparently Vanguard 1 has his own entity and soul and everything. It's like, and it's completely gone. So he wants the 7 deities, and he keeps talking about the 7 deities all the entire time, to put the soul that he deleted from Jeff Hardy into Vanguard 1. So that's how Vanguard 1 comes back and everything in that sense. And he eventually does go on and he has Vanguard 1 help him find Senior Benjamin as well. So they find Senior Benjamin. He had been put into like a barn far away and was had like Decay written on him. So eventually, like, without any kind of like ramification, he finds Senior Benjamin. This leads into a promo in the actual Impact Zone, and this leads to what I found to be a very good promo from both sides, like Decay and from Matt Hardy, to go along with this. It was just overall interesting what they decided to do, and what it ends out leading to is Matt challenging Decay to what is going to be called the Great War. Now, I don't know if this is going to be like another filmed segment, like Final Deletion, or like or Delete or Decay, but it's supposed to be at Bound for Glory time. So it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do, whether this is going to be something that happens in the arena itself, or if it's going to be another film segment like the Final Deletion or Delete or Decay. So we'll see where they go with everything on this side. But overall, like, good segments from that throughout the entire show. This leads also into the final bit that I wanted to talk about, which kind of also started throughout the beginning of the show and went on throughout the entire show as well. You had Lashley coming out to the Impact Zone. He's going to cut a promo talking about what he did to EC3 at a press conference, putting him into the hospital and everything in that sense. And, Lashley's like, I no longer have a main event opponent and everything, and that's inside of there. So he even says, like, Borash, why don't you be my opponent? It's like, and it was like talk about how big of a joke that would be and everything, and everything there. This brings Grado out. That was pointless. Grado coming out was pointless, but he does get the line in there. It's like, oh, he would be an even bigger joke in that sense. So Lashley takes out Grado. This leads Moose to coming out after Lashley said, like, there's no one who can beat me, no one who can stand up to me, and everything like that. It brings out Moose. They brawl for a little bit. Moose gets the upper hand, and eventually throughout the night you saw a couple of extra promos. One from Moose challenging Bobby Lashley to a fight, and then Bobby Lashley responding to that, saying, no, I'm not going to do it. And then you had another backstage vignette with Moose, or not Moose, but Michael Bennett and Lashley, where Michael Bennett kind of goads him into accepting the challenge and everything in that sense. And Lashley's like even in on the whole aspect. It's like, you're just doing this so I can potentially soften up Moose for your match at Bound for Glory and everything. But it's like, yeah, I'll go out there and fight him anyway because I am who I am. So this brings to the end of the show where Moose comes out and it's like he's waiting for Bobby Lashley. So Bobby Lashley decides to cut a promo saying, it's like, why do we want to do this now? Let's do this for the big fight field. And he wants to try to get Moose to do it for Bound for Glory and everything on that sense. And it's like, Moose is like, yeah, you're kind of right. You want, it's like, I should be doing this for the big money. And we should wait for Bound for Glory. But I don't want to wait. So they start brawling. Eventually, Michael Bennett comes out and he starts attacking Moose. So you have Lashley and Bennett going after Moose. And they end the show with EC3 coming out to make the save. And that's literally how it is. It ends with like a double clothesline. EC3 looking at the hard camera. They go off the air. Overall, I actually like these segments. It ties in the EC3 stuff a little bit to on all sides, where he was going after Michael Bennett for the longest time. But, you know, he also has an aspect that's like, why is he helping Moose? Because Moose kind of did a lot of stuff to him too to go along with it. But so you have the whole aspect of tying in Lashley and EC3, and you're tying Moose with and Bennett into kind of the same thing. And you know what this is probably going to lead to. Probably going to lead to a tag team match of some sort. So we'll see where they go with everything on that sense. Overall, this week's Impact, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a pretty good show in the end. I found some very entertaining segments to the show. You had some down points to the show. I thought the Knockouts number one contendership match, I thought was a little bit of a messy match. I was not a big fan of the empty arena, no turnbuckle match to go along with it. But you also had the aspects of the Grand Championship and everything like that to go along with everything. So overall, I feel like they put on a pretty good show this week. Not a bad way of going about it going into Bound for Glory. So we'll see where they go everything next week. And that is my review for TNA Impact Wrestling, and I thank you guys for watching.